Empires built on military dominance rarely fall to better armies. They are consumed from the inside out by a slower force, financial leverage. In the early 17th century, the Tokugawa shogunate ruled Japan with absolute authority. They organized society under a rigid Neo-Confucian hierarchy known as Shi-no-ko-sho. The samurai warriors sat at the absolute top, while the merchants, the chonin, were relegated to the very bottom, despised as unproductive parasites. To cement this power, the shogunate measured wealth not in gold, but in physical rice. The foundational unit of the economy was the koku, a specific volume of rice calibrated to feed one man for 1 year. Under the kokudaka system, political rank was directly tied to agricultural yield. To be recognized as a daimyo, a feudal lord, you had to possess lands capable of producing a minimum of 10,000 koku annually. By anchoring imperial authority to a physical, depreciating agricultural product, the shogunate built a fortress. But they also created an inflexible system, incapable of keeping pace with a developing commercial economy. The shogunate's ultimate tool for political control was the sankenkote, or alternate attendance system. This policy required every daimyo to travel to the capital city of Edo every other year and maintain a lavish secondary household there. It worked perfectly as a political leash, but it harbored a fatal economic flaw. The logistical nightmare of moving entire entourages across the country and maintaining dual residences consumed up to 40% of a daimyo's total income. This created an immediate liquidity crisis. The samurai were wealthy in physical grain, but you couldn't pay innkeepers or capital merchants with tons of rotting rice. They needed ryo, the stamped gold coins accepted as hard currency. To convert their massive agricultural yields into usable gold, the samurai were forced to turn to the only people who could process that volume of trade, the bottom-tier merchants of Osaka. The very mechanism designed to ensure Tokugawa dominance forced the samurai to hand their economic liquidity over to the exact social class they loathed the most. The epicenter of this wealth transfer was the Dōjima Rice Exchange in Osaka. Here, merchants built massive warehouses to store the daimyo's immense right stipends for a fee. Soon, hauling heavy coins became as cumbersome as hauling rice, so the merchants invented komekite, paper receipts representing the stored grain. This was Japan's first paper money, backed entirely by the credit of private merchants, not the government. Around 1710, the merchants made a conceptual leap. They realized they didn't actually need physical rice in the warehouse to trade the underlying value of the crop. They developed the nobemai, or futures contract. By standardizing the product grade and quantity, buyers and sellers could trade paper coupons for rice that hadn't even been planted yet, leaving price as the only fluctuating variable. These merchants created a parallel economy of paper credit, functioning independently of physical granaries, and one the sword-wielding samurai could not effectively regulate. One merchant in particular, Honma Munehisa, realized how to exploit this new reality. In 1755, he published The Fountain of Gold, the first treatise on market psychology. Honma tracked years of price action and realized that the price of a futures contract was often divorced from the physical supply of rice. Instead, it was driven by human emotion, oscillating between yang, a bull market, and yin, a bear market. This candlestick maps market emotion. The real body plots the boundary between opening and closing trades, while wicks capture the highest and lowest prices. The Heikin-ashi block averages these values. Side by side, the Heikin-ashi wicks reveal underlying trend strength that a standard chart obscures. These charts allowed merchants to map the psychological patterns of the market. While the samurai remained tied to the fixed value of their harvest, these tools allowed merchants to anticipate and profit from the volatile price shifts that were eroding the warrior class's purchasing power. By the late 18th century, the social hierarchy was effectively inverted. The ruling samurai were now trapped in a web of derivatives and debt controlled entirely by the merchants. The shogunate launched a series of desperate reactionary reforms, the Kyoho, the Kansei, and the Tempo, to regain control. They tried to fix the economy by decree, but laws were no match for the sophisticated financial systems they had allowed to grow. They even attempted to set price floors, mandating that rice sell for at least 1 gold ryo per 1.4 koku. But imposing legal limits on liquidity only worsened the crisis, as merchants simply hoarded their grain and waited for the currency to devalue. This economic rot left the Tokugawa government bankrupt and defenseless. When Western powers arrived and internal rebellions broke out, the old system collapsed, leading to the Meiji Restoration and the end of the samurai era. Military force and Western diplomacy provided the final blow, but the foundation of the shogunate had been hollowed out long before. The transition to the modern era was driven by a shift in power, from commanding the land to commanding the mathematics of value.